Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at a watch that I've had my eye on for quite a while, the Bulova Lunar Pilot Moonwatch, known as the Other Moonwatch. One of only two watches to ever set foot on the moon, the other one being the Omega Speedmaster, but obviously the Omega gets a lot more recognition, hence why this has been coined the Other Moonwatch. This Lunar Pilot Moonwatch is inspired by that original watch. So that was the Bulova chronograph found on the Apollo 15 mission in 1971. We'll have a little bit of a history lesson when we actually check out the case back though, but first let's check out the unboxing process. So we have an outer cardboard box, this inner box which opens up, and we have the watch inside. So nothing too crazy exciting. If I just pull it up, we have a little compartment at the bottom for sort of like spare links. We've got a certificate of authenticity, a little bit of information about the moon landing, and then our instruction manual. So move that out of the way. And here we have the watch itself. So I do quite actually like the way that this is slightly angled. Usually you get a bit of a plain old cushion, but it's quite a nice unusual shaped cushion. So there we have it. Unboxing process, fairly average, nothing too crazy, nothing too exciting, but we have the watch in our hands now. That's all that matters. So the price of this is £499. That's the RRP, but if you have a look around, usually on Amazon you can find them for about £375 or about £400. So we'll see if it's a decent watch for the money. So let's start off by discussing the specs. So I have a approximate 7-inch wrist for point of reference. So first things first, it is actually slightly larger than I originally anticipated. The diameter is a pretty impressive 45 millimeters. We have a height of 14 mil, and then a lug-to-lug length of 52.5 mil. So it certainly is a big watch, and I found that as I was doing some research on it, it didn't look that large until I actually had it in my hands. So I would say that if you are under 7 inches, pay close attention and take considerable thought over the sheer size of it, because it is pretty big, especially with this tonneau shape case, sort of like a barrel shape, where it has quite a long lug-to-lug length, so it certainly does look a little bit weird on smaller wrists, so be careful of that. Weight-wise, it's 169 grams, so it does feel decent, good quality on the wrist. If you check out how many links I've removed, let me just find them. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've removed 5 links. And it's still 169 grams, so a really good, heavy feeling, decent quality watch. You know, when you're wearing it, you do get the feeling of good quality. Water resistance is nothing too exciting, 5 atmospheres, 50 meters, fairly average. It's not a diving watch, so don't go diving with it. That pretty much covers that off. 3 years manufacturing warranty with it as well, and you have a 20 mil wide lug width. We'll discuss the lugs a little bit when we get to it, because there's something unusual about this model, in that it comes in 2 different models, basically, model without bracelet and one with bracelet, and that determines the location of the pinholes on the lugs. So we'll discuss that in a bit, but it's 20 mil width, which is fairly average. Some people might think it looks a little bit thin, considering the 45 mil diameter, but I actually think it looks fine. Certainly looks fine on as well, and certainly ties in with that vintage kind of cues from the 1971 watch itself. And then finally the movement, the Bulova Caliber 8136. So this is one of the key selling points of this watch. Basically this is an ultra high frequency. We see it written on the dial. It runs at 262 kilohertz, which basically means that it runs at 16 ticks per second. Now, unfortunately, the running seconds hand doesn't follow suit. This one is running at about 2 ticks per second. However, the ultra high frequency aspect of it does mean that it is super duper accurate for a quartz watch. They're talking around 10 seconds per year. Now, that is pretty impressive, and Bulova, you know, these special movements they've got out into the like precisionist line, they are some of the best quartz movements you can get. So very, very impressive. Don't just poo-poo it just because, ugh, you know, it's quartz. There is something special about this movement, so really, really consider that. Whilst we're talking about the movement as well, it's good to note that it's obviously a chronograph movement. So if I was to start it, we have a tenth of a second indicator at 3. As you can see, when we stop it, it stops exactly on the 10th of the second. This big seconds hand is obviously the chronograph seconds hand, 60-minute chronograph on the left hand side as well, and then our subdial at 6 is just the running minutes. So, and then we can reset it. So the 10th of a minute, the 10th of a second indicator only runs for the first 30 seconds, and then after that, when you stop it, it kicks into action then, basically to stop that little hand from spinning itself off, you know, spinning so hard it will eventually fly off. And it saves battery as well, so just to keep that in mind. All right, so that's all the specs discussed. Let's have a think about it in closer detail, aspect by aspect then. So let's start off with the dial then. It's clean, it's classic, it's uncomplicated. It makes it so timeless. You know, it's based on something from 1971, and yet it still looks great today. The black with the white marking means it will literally go with anything in any situation as well. And it just, you know, looks so clean and crisp. The finishing of the dial is tremendous, really. It's multi-layered as well. So if I just take it off, we'll have a quick look. We'll have a look at this in close detail with the macro lens, but you'll notice we have a tachymeter right at the top around the outside. That then drops down to a second track at a lower level. Then we have our main dial, and then following that, our sub-dials are all on a lower level with concentric circular patterns engraved on top of as well. And then we have a date window. Obviously many people will be happy to see that the date wheel itself is color matched to match the dial. I do think it's a little bit low though. It doesn't stop it from being legible. It just seems a bit low basically visually, but that's probably because the level of the different levels on the dial itself. So you do get a really nice sense of depth to the dial whilst you're checking it out, and that's aided by the really clear sapphire crystal sitting on top. But we'll touch on that in a moment or two. So the applied hour markers as well, very nice and deep. I always love to see decent quality hour markers because it really does signify, you know, good thought, good quality control as well, and good just general good build quality. And these are really, really nice and thick as well, so that's good. Loom is fairly average. It's nothing outstanding, which is a shame considering, you know, the RRP is £500. You'd like to see something with fairly decent loom. However, it is distinctly average on this watch. Yeah, the hands in general, very simple. You know, you just can't, there's nothing overly complex about it. It's just simple to the point. You know, all these hands are pretty much just basic batons, especially the subdials, sort of pencil shaped hands for the main two hands, and then a nice little detailed arrow on the second chronograph hand as well. So moving on to the case itself then. So the case is a pretty funky blasted finish. Now some people may grumble that it's a shame that the case and the bracelet don't match, which I agree, it does look a little bit unusual. However, when you're wearing it, you don't actually notice it too much. And if you're not that anal, it really won't bother you. I'm not that anal, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest, because when you're wearing it and when you're just glancing at it, you don't actually notice it. There is a wide array of finishes as well. So we have that blasted finish, but we also have brushed and polished. We can see polished on the pushers and the crown, and then a brush surround to the sort of like to the, it's not really a bezel, but it's the bit which holds the sapphire crystal. And then on the case back, same again. So we have a sort of like a polished Bulova logo, a blasted backdrop there, and then a brush surround with a little polished ring as well. So a nice array of finishes. It is spotlessly manufactured as well. The quality of the case is absolutely tremendous. And one thing that I really found interesting was actually the shape of the pushers. I'd seen obviously many pictures, but I didn't quite get the shape of them. So you can see, you know, they're so thin and slender, really easy to use because they are so easy to push, and they feel really good in the hand as well. Obviously that is really, really 70s in terms of design as well, so that pulls through. And then our crown as well, good grip on that with the Bulova logo just embossed on the end. Really easy to use, so just pull it out, reset it. Good grip on that bad boy as well. Just thinking about the crystal, so I did mention it earlier, it is sapphire crystal, it is flat, which is good, so it's pretty scratch resistant, so it looks awesome that it's so raised out of the case. But this exposed edge, sapphire isn't quite as shatter resistant as a mineral crystal, interestingly, so that you should be careful with that. Basically, if you knock that may chip. So it looks amazing, and it gives such awesome angles as well of visibility, as you can see here. You know, even like here we can see how beautifully visible it is. It's a really good effective crystal. So just be careful of that exposed edge. So moving on to the case back, so time for our history lesson. So this is where we commemorate when the original Bulova chronograph was worn on the moon. So Apollo 15 was a mission. The mission was active between July 26th to August 7th, 1971. The moment that it was actually worn on the moon was on EVA-3, so that's a moonwalk code, and that happened on August 2nd, 1971. And then that final bit of information is basically the location. So Hadley Reel, or Apennines, is the location on the moon that it happened. So a nice little bit of information there to commemorate what this watch is based on, and you know, really interesting, well finished case back as well. As you can see there, lovely reflections coming off the polished elements, and just some other information surrounding the outside as well. Very well finished. One other interesting point I wanted to note as well is how we have these teeny tiny little screws on the underside, and that's obviously the sort of the pivot for the pushers. But I just thought that was really interesting and quite cute. So finally, moving on to the bracelet. So this is, as I mentioned previously, such a weird thing that Bulova has done. Basically, if you went for the bracelet version, the sort of pinholes inside the lugs are in a different position to the standard version. So what that means is, if you have the bracelet version, you can fit other straps on it. Obviously, you just take the bracelet off as you would normally, get a fresh pair of 20mm pins, put a strap on. However, if you have the strap version, you can't put the bracelet on it. So if you go for the strap version, that is all you're having, straps and nothing else. You can't have the bracelet. You can't buy the bracelet as a second, you know, as an afterthought and fit it. It won't fit because the pinholes are in a different location. A weird thing to do. I have no idea why they've done it, and that is really frustrating for me personally, because it just doesn't make any sense. You know, why would they do that? So hence why I've got the bracelet version, because I like having that flexibility. I always buy a watch with the bracelet as well, because usually it tends to be more cost effective, rather than if a watch is, you know, you can have a leather version or a bracelet version. It's usually better in most instances to buy the bracelet version than buy the leather version and then the bracelet separately, if you know what I mean. The cost seems to make it's a little bit cheaper. So I personally would go for the bracelet version. Keep that in mind though, if you are after one of these and you're shopping around, if you ever want bracelet, go for the bracelet version, because you don't have a choice basically. So the bracelet is fully brushed. As I mentioned, it's unusual that it's different to the case, but it does not too jarring. The quality is really sensational. There's no half links. It's a butterfly clasp as well, so there's no micro adjustment. So it is difficult to get a perfect fit, but the fact that the links are smaller than a regular size link, that does work in its favour. If I just pop it on. So I do find that I've got, what did I say? I think I said I've got 5 links removed. I've got about 7-inch wrist. I find when I'm cold it fits perfectly. However, when it gets a bit warmer, it does feel a little bit tight, so sometimes I have to take it off. Obviously with a micro adjustment, I'll be able to get it absolutely spot on. So that's just one thing to keep in mind as well. We have a nice little Bulova logo engraved as well on the hidden clasp. But the butterfly clasp, really nice and easy to use. Just pressing those two buttons opens it up, and it was fairly easy and straightforward to resize as well due to the pins. So yeah, these links, as you can see, very nicely finished, all brushed as well, so quite scratch resistant, but they're very nice and comfortable due to their gentle kind of little bended profile, curved profile to them, if you will, and it fits perfectly to the case as well. Very tight fit, as you can see there. Sort of no room for any wiggle at all, so very nicely fitted to the case. Good tolerances there. Alright, so let's get the macro lens on and have a look at it in even closer detail. So here we are, starting off with the dial. Let me get this little doobry what's it moving. As you can see there, spinning away. Nice concentric circular patterns on the sub dials as well. Very good fit and finish on the dial. You can see our lovely applied hour markers as well. If I try and get a bit of a angle on that, you can see the depths that we're working with. Pretty standard hands, clean and crisp though, and good print work across the board. The only thing is on the date windows, you can see there, the date itself seemed, I don't know, a little bit blurry, not quite as clean and crisp and finely printed as I would have liked. So yeah, that's just one thing that I wish was a little bit better, but you can see the levels of the dial as well. So just the dial in general is really nicely done. Good tachymeter on the outside as well, which is good and handy to use. So you'll see now that it's gone past 30 seconds, our spinning second hand has finished, and he's chilling out now. So moving on to the case, you can see here our brushed finish, decent, uniform, and clean and crisp. And we have our brushed side to sort of like a fake bezel, if you will, and then we have our side, exposed side of the sapphire crystal as well, beautifully flat, and sort of like a gentle little beveled edges to that as well, which is nice. Moving on to this side, so here's our crown. You can see there the Bulova logo embossed on the end. Good grip on that as well, easy to use. And here's one of our pushers, polished as well, again very easy to use due to their unusual shape, which is very retro. That goes with the watch itself, doesn't it? So here we have the case back. If I give that a cheeky little wipe, you can see here our information printed nicely, polished Bulova logo, and then these other bits of information around the outside. Good finishing on the case back, and perfectly lined up as well, which is nice to see. And then finally moving on to the bracelet. So we see our brushed links, fully brushed as well, so no polished sides or anything like that. And the underside, same again, nice and soft. And then if we have a look at our buckle, there's the cheeky little Bulova logo engraved on one side, then it's got our little pusher. Just to open it up, little pins inside. You can see there a little bit of wear where we've been wearing the watch so much, but all in all, excellent build quality from top to bottom. So then, the Bulova Lunar Pilot Moonwatch. I really like it. I paid for this with my own money, £275 I paid for it. It was second hand, which is why it's a little bit rough and ready around the edges. However, I think it's beautiful. I love the classic timeless look. You know, it's obviously based on that watch from 1971, and it just looks so cool. It's got such great history behind it as well, obviously to commemorate that initial lunar moon landing, and I really like the history behind it, and the way they commemorate that on the case back, really cool. You know, if someone was to ask you about it, you can at least give them a bit of information as well, give everyone a little history lesson, which is cool. But just the general fit and finish far outweighs the couple of weird little niggles that I have with the watch. Obviously the difference in finish between the bracelet and the case, that may be just a full-on no-no for many people. Another weird thing is the fact that, you know, the bracelet has the pinholes in different locations. So if you go for the leather version or the strap version, you can't fit the bracelet. Another weird thing to do. And then finally, you know, the exposed sapphire crystal, that could be a bit of an issue in terms of you could wallop it and it could chip. So, you know, it's exposed and it is that is a risk. But despite these things, I think it's a beautiful watch. Build quality from top to bottom is sensational. The movement is a great selling point as well. You know, it's one of those kind of things that even if you hate quartz, you've got to appreciate the technology behind this movement. Bulova don't share a lot of movement. It is proprietary. It is their own movement. So there is a little bit of secrecy around it as well. And obviously the Precisionist line do have that really smooth sweep, which is quite cool. So if this one doesn't float your boat, then I'd always recommend checking out the Precisionist line, because those movements tick at 16 ticks per second. So that's double the speed of a regular like ETA 2824 or, you know, one of those Swiss made mechanicals. So if you wanted the appearance of a mechanical but want the sheer accuracy and reliability of a quartz, then the Precisionist line is very, very good. Or just in general, any Bulova with this ultra high frequency movement in. So that is a great selling point, and I really like it. You know, really happy with my purchase. It looks fantastic, feels great as well. You know, just the general feeling of it is very, very high quality, and it does match the RRP. So if you are looking for this and you want to buy one, then go ahead with it, because you won't be disappointed. So this was the Bulova Lunar Pilot Moonwatch. Thanks for watching, guys. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and also comment your thoughts below. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.